Hello, rollers, listeners of the future, friends and family alike. Welcome back to another episode of Classin' Up the Joint. This is the part of the show where we ask awesome people asinine questions. I am your host. My name is Colin. I use they and he pronouns, and I get to do an introduction this time. I am joined by the fabulous and fantastic Nick Plaisance. Nick is a professional GM, TTRPG educator, the Lorekeeper for our dear friends at Unbalanced Encounters, where he has, in fact, played several very fun characters on this show that you can hear if you go listen, and runs delightfuldungeondiving.com, where you/your children, if you have them, could learn from Nick how to play RPGs of all sorts and many other things. Nick, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, howdy. Thank you so much for having me. Love listening to the show, and it's an honor to be on.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We are delighted to have you. And I think I will start where I have been. Nick, how did you get your start in D&D or RPGs as a whole? Was there a game back in your youth, misspent or well-spent as it may be? Where is your heroic origin story, if you will?
So, long story cut short here. There was a kid in my town. I grew up in a pretty remote place, so the general access to Dungeons and Dragons media and just being able to go to a bookstore and find that, I didn't have that, but there was a kid who had the first Baldur's Gate computer game.
Oh, nice.
So I would play on their computer and then finally got it for hours and just played hours and hours and hours and hours. Eventually discovered that, oh, hey, one of the characters that guests in this game, Drit Stewart, and that there's this whole book series. And that just kind of opened me into the world of Dungeons and Dragons from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. When did you start playing playing at a table? Was there like a long path from like video game to books and then like way off in the future was the table?
Absolutely. I think I realized how big the Dungeons and Dragons, specifically, D&D, how big that world was of video games, books, and everything. So I just kind of sat in that corner with it. And I didn't actually sit down at a table to play until I was in my 20s, maybe 6-7 years ago, played with my wife and some friends. And that was the first time I'd ever actually physically played the actual role-playing game.
Yeah, amazing. And how did you kind of get from there to being involved with the podcast, kind of, running one and teaching kids?
So I'm a public school teacher by trade, and I had these kids for homeroom, lunch periods, passing periods, just time where some of these kids didn't have a place to be in the school or they didn't really have a clique to go to, and I just, for lack of anything better to do, I got a big foam D20 and started just kind of improvising a game with them. And when the pandemic hit and everything went online, I think we were using Microsoft Teams at the time, the school system. And I just tried to figure out a way I could use a digital whiteboard to put characters and pictures and stuff up. Because theater of the mind is wonderful. But if you're a middle schooler and you have to just stare at a screen filled with other people's faces for 2 hours, So you
need something a little bit more to like hold their attention.
Exactly. It's kind of hard to sit in front of a computer that long. And I figured out how to do it that way. I heard from someone about this online platform where teachers teach all sorts of classes. And I just kind of transferred it over to that.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I mean, I find it hard as an adult to stare at a screen for longer than like an hour, and it's like real efforts of will. I can only imagine how terrible it must be as a middle school aged child.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, amazing. So I feel like for me, it felt like the entry point is kind of to like talk about your work with Unbalanced Encounters and how you got involved and what that means, and then lead into Delightful Dungeon Diving and kind of the way that this is expanded. That's what makes sense in my head. So I think I'm going to start with that. Like, how did you get involved with Unbalanced Encounters?
So they are kind of inextricably linked. I was doing all of these D&D classes or just TTRPG classes in general, because I also teach kids Starfinder, Cunning Folk, Kids on Bikes, all of them, right?
Yeah.
I was doing that, and folks would hear me in the office doing funny voices and stuff. And my sister, shout out Chelsea, because I know you'll listen to this. She kind of pestered me she kind of pestered me to start a TikTok so that, like, friends and family could see the kind of characters and things I was doing. And as that grew, started getting the idea of, it'd be fun to get a little podcast together where we talk TTRPGs and also do some voice acting. And, I found Emily Graymore, and she helped me start that. Had Hannah Burnett at Critical Stitch and Cosmic Ibrahim. We're all involved, and it was wonderful. Yeah. It's one of those things where life gets in the way and everyone tries to start a podcast, and I thought we had something good. It's just life gets complicated and babies come, So that's how I got linked with Emily, and when Unbalanced Encounters formed at pretty much the same time. I was very, very fortunate and grateful to be asked on as a guest, and I've just slowly insinuated myself into everything with Unbalanced Encounters.
I feel like that's how it works. You find the people you want to make creative things with, and you're like, hey, we could do more creative stuff, and I could do these other creative things. Yeah, very much. So what does the Lorekeeper exactly mean? Like, this is something that I feel like, you and I have some similar sort of behind the scenes views about what goes on there. But like, this is a position that I don't necessarily see other podcasts advertising that they have. But so like, what do you do as the Lorekeeper, and why do you think it's important, especially for something like Unbalanced Encounters?
Okay, hold on. I'm frantically texting Patrick. Patrick, what is my job description? So it's a good question, because my first reaction to being offered that was thinking that it was more of an archival role of just noting everything that happened story-wise and beginning an encyclopedia. We have someone on Unbalanced Encounters. Icewind Gale is wonderful at that job. They had basically been doing it as a fan anyways. So my job as Lorekeeper, and as far as other organizations, I believe Critical Role has a Lorekeeper who's very involved. It's not just keeping track of what has happened in a story. It is almost like a story editor position where you are working with the game master or showrunner to help guide the story to make sure the story is going to teach and hit the lessons or the point that you're aiming for in the first place. And Lorekeepers are, I think, having done it now, I think super important for a show, especially an actual play show where it's very improvisational in nature. And as much as we can plan out, the story beats we want to hit through this arc, that all the players, all the actors are going to be doing their own thing. And so I not only work with the GM, I will also touch base with the players and say, hey, what's the kind of arc you're looking for in your character? What are the arcs you're open for with your character? What do you not want to see happen with that? And what ideas can I give you that will help you flesh this character out? In a big way, I'm kind of just a sounding board for ideas. But having done this for a while, we've recorded an entire first arc using this system with a game master and myself. And it gets really, really fun. Diving into these ideas and trying to find ways to provide a sandbox world for these players to come in and still get a coherent story out of it.
Sure. It seems like both a sounding board and like, I'm going to mix a whole bunch of metaphors here, I think, for a moment. Like, it sort of feels like your role in some ways is, being the tracks that the railroad is on to make sure that it's not, like, falling off or, like, taking weird, unexpected turns, or like the person who's in charge of gathering all of these disparate threads and turning them into tapestry. Maybe not in charge, but like heavily contributing to like, I've got a red thread and a blue thread and a green thread and like all these things. And it's not a rope or it's not a story. It's not a tapestry until I help sort of start weaving them together and making sure they all fit in the right places.
Absolutely. I'm definitely, I'm like the little kobold that lives in the game master's skull and is constantly prodding them like, hey, you forgot about this thing you were excited about. Or, hey, remember that thing that you told me like 6 months ago? I don't know if we should do that anymore. Like, that's sort of my job.
Yeah. Have you ever had to cut off something you're like, wait a minute, this is going to directly contradict the story beats we already talked about, or like the things we already said we wanted to hit, and you can do that. You just got to know we're like totally cutting the tapestry.
Absolutely. And it's not like, it's such a hard position to be in because I don't want to take any credit for the amazing product that comes from this, because that's the player and the GM and the showrunner. But we've definitely had moments where we think of like an NPC especially, which is what we have full control over, a non-playable character. And we're like, okay, we have this character, they're going to say this, and oh, what if they did this thing? Or what if they had this? Or what if they looked like this? And I will bring up, hey, if we do this, that opens the door to these other possibilities. And those possibilities are fun, but they don't, it's not tight. It doesn't fit with the story we're telling, and we got 4 episodes. So do we really want to do this? Do we want to open those doors? Is it funny enough? Is it important enough? Is it tragic enough to include? And then also, I think a super important part of having not just a lore keeper, but other people involved in, especially in actual play, so that you're not just living inside your own head. There might be gaps that you're not aware of, blind spots, so to speak. And it's just nice to have extra people there to take a second, digest your ideas, and tell you like, hey, this is great, but there is absolutely a bone in there, and it's going to really come out the wrong end later on this story. So, absolutely. It's just constant checking of everything.
Is it, I'm trying to remember. Very minor spoilers for upcoming Unbalanced Encounters. There's a different structure, and I'm curious, like, if you have found it more difficult based on the amount of time we've had so far. Of like, Unbalanced Encounters Rally was several years, one story, 80 odd episodes, trying to kind of lore keep and tend and prune that particular garden versus the newer methods where they're kind of trying to do shorter arcs. A 12 episode one was completed, and there's several others planned. So I guess really just referencing like this first shorter arc versus the much longer several year campaign. If there are, I guess, different challenges, like maybe it's not fair to say is one easier than the other yet, but like, are there some different challenges or opportunities that you're noticing with a much shorter campaign form?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I as an audience member, as a listener, I am of the camp that kind of loves just full recorded the entire session. I love to just see how the players are reacting to things and living in that world for as long as possible. But that doesn't make for easily digestible media, For all of those who are still like catching up on season 2 of Critical Role or one of the many different arcs of Dimension 20, that they'll understand. But I think like I had the wonderful experience of getting to be, I believe it was the first bonus arc, The Hateful Fate of Unbalanced Encounters. And that was a time where it was like, hey, we're not going to be with these characters forever. You guys have 2 episodes to get this short story and get out what you want from your characters. And that was the first time. And I think as we did that, it was a lot of fun. I think it's a great story. And there was also a lot of pressure of like, okay, only so much can fit in here. And, you got to make these characters, you got to let them breathe enough for people to like them and want to know more about them. but you're going to have to leave a lot, off the table.
Yeah.
Now with these arcs, now that we have this, I'm here to save the day. That's why this is why I hate talking about it this way.
with more experience. I don't think it's tooting your own horn when you are in fact a pretty key clutch contributor to this show. Again, my recent peek behind the curtain, I'm like, oh, Nick, you're doing a lot. You're doing a whole lot that listeners may or may not be aware of. But you are a strong contributor on the back end.
Well, I do appreciate it.
Toot your own, toot your own horn. Yeah.
So with the shorter arc structure, I'll say the benefit of that is Unbalanced Encounters now has the audience. A very dedicated, by the numbers, it's an extremely dedicated audience. It's kind of crazy how strong our audience for Unbalanced Encounters is. And now we can produce, we can think of a type of story we want to tell, and it's strong, it's tight, the themes are there, and as with any actual play, there's plenty of room for characters and players to bring new stuff to the table or to swerve in a new direction. And with our 12 episode arc, it was working with the GM to say, all right, you've introduced these characters. Do we need another kind of character? Can we reuse this one for that same point? Whether it be industrialization or poverty. What are we saying about these two things, and who can we use to do that? Or do we give this over to the players? Do we open a door, dangle a little bit of bait, and see if the players pick up on it?
Right.
It's always things like that. And I think a huge benefit of doing things this way is just developing ideas with another person. It's kind of like being what I imagine a writer's room for a major show would be like, except you're very focused. Again, no spoilers. We have an arc coming up, but the game master and I, the showrunner and I, were working on what kind of story is this and how are we going to do it. And as we finished, we finally, we nailed it so good. I can't wait. And as we finished, I looked at it and I said, actual plays are wonderful. If you and I put this down as a script, A24 would be busting our doors down. I strongly urge anyone who has an actual play, even if you are an open-ended one, you have no set end point for the campaign, I would strongly suggest bringing a Lorekeeper on as someone to bounce ideas off of and get new perspectives from. And for my part, I don't want to skip saying this. What has been such a wonderful experience for me is not only working with the showrunner and the players, but within the Unbalanced Encounters organization itself. I will sometimes message folks and say, hey, I want to get your thoughts on this concept, a concept of names. What's your idea on the concept of guilt? These sorts of things. And I haven't learned this much from other people since college. So selfishly, I'm super excited to be here. I might get as much out of it as I can before they figure out I don't know what I'm doing.
Take all the knowledge and run before they figure it out. No, I mean, you say this and I think sometimes about qualifications for specific roles within this industry versus others. For example, just took a look at a professorship at UC Berkeley that I am wildly in no way qualified for. It is a dance professorship. To be clear, it is my field that I have chosen to be part of in outside RPG land, but wildly unqualified. But I'm just going yeah, but I could do it. I could do it. And in this case, one of the things I love about UE and the thing is exactly that sort of cross-pollination, that everyone is very open to sharing ideas about the specific things as I'm doing little bits of lore and writing and things and needing to pull things, and the random question of what do you think about the concept of names? What do names mean to you? I really love that and appreciate that as well.
I've known more than 2 people who have started out at jobs, and by the time the job figured out that they were not qualified, they were already like middle management. They're like, hey, look, I can do the job. You guys let me in here.
Yeah, you open the door and I'm here. I guess you could fire me and get someone qualified, but they might want more money. Just saying.
I am going to hijack your podcast and ask you, have you ever found intersection between the field of dance and TTRPGs and how you approach your tabletop games?
I would say that I use a lot of the skills that I've developed in performance. I'm not exclusively a dancer. I do many other, I clown and circus and theater and many of these things, but all of them have given me a body of knowledge for both physical and voice acting in terms of how I want to respond to my players. They've also made me very comfortable with yes-anding whatever insane thing they want to do. I have made a couple specific characters where I'm like, I can talk about the way they are and who they are and how they move because they're based on, they're based on a clown that I worked with. They're based on a piece that I performed or like, something that I have done. I haven't explicitly made a like modern dance PC for any game. I did have a subversive performance artist once who was a clown and graffitied.
Amazing.
So so it definitely feeds and informs and has some cross-pollination, not in like really, really direct ways yet, maybe. But working on it. I had this question about like, what do you enjoy most about being the Lorekeeper and working for UE? But I kind of feel like unless there's a more specific answer, we like kind of already did that one.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway is just I get to learn so much and I get to experience so many stories.
Yeah, 100%. Are there like other unique challenges about your function with the show and that we didn't already like kind of talk about because that was a pretty wide last chunk of things into roles and responsibilities and whatnot?
No, I think we covered it. Yeah.
But it's and again, I think takeaways like more people should have this position if you want to produce an actual play, or honestly, like I kind of think it's good to have someone just at your home games and your campaigns that you can bounce ideas off of and keep your story arcs moving in the direction you want them.
Absolutely, and I would finish that by saying, sometimes an opportunity arises where I have noticed a potential danger situation of like the way we named a character, the way a character looks, or what a character might be doing in the background. And, it's not necessarily a red flag moment. It's more like, hey, I happen to notice this. Does anyone think that this is worth us really taking a look at, or should we avoid this altogether? And that's a tiny part of the job. And that's a job for everyone involved in an actual play. Everyone should always be conscious of, is there potential harm here? And how likely is it that if we do this, it will cause harm? That's a small bit of it. What I would mostly focus on is getting the story you want, telling the story you want, and having everyone not necessarily on the same page. Because again, there's so much improvisation and that's the beauty of actual plays. But if everyone knows the kind of story we're telling, their characters become so much richer. Yeah. And you do. I mean, you really do have to kill your darlings sometimes.
Oh, always. No, you're the babies in the TTRPG world, especially your own, exist to be thrown out with the bathwater and left to fend for themselves.
Yep.
Sometimes. Hello, rollers. It is I, your host, debatably friendly DM, and other things, Colin, here to welcome you to the mid-roll. Thank you for listening, and we hope you are enjoying this episode so far. This is your periodic interruption, brief as it may be, to remind you that The Roll Report is on many social media platforms. You can find us around the interwebs at The Roll Report Cast, on Instagram, on TikTok, and on Blue Sky. We don't do the other thing. We don't talk about the artist formerly known as Twitter. But you can follow us there for news and announcements, special clips from the interviews you may not have seen, and learn about who we're going to interview next. Because if you are very intrigued and curious about upcoming interview guests, if you head on over to patreon.com/The Roll Report and give us a single $1, you can submit questions for our interviews, and only you and only our other supporters on Patreon will hear the answers. That's right, special Patreon-only Q&As with interview guests if you support us there and if you send us questions. Thank you so much for listening. Back to the show. Enjoy! Well, speaking of babies, I guess.
Great segue.
Yeah, so in addition to public school, you have like a whole other business teaching kids to play RPGs of many kinds and things. We kind of talk about how that started already as like pandemic and like kind of bringing your students in. Like, what is the kind of the day-to-day of that business look like for you?
Yeah, so I'm very, very fortunate in that I get to be a stay-at-home dad for now. We have a 2-year-old, and but I wanted to keep this business going. And when I get back into a classroom, hopefully soon in the next few years, I will also still keep this business going.
Yeah.
Generally, the way I structure with mostly middle school aged kids, so anywhere from 10, I've had 9 on the real young end, but usually 10 to 16-ish. And for me, I generally have my sessions be an hour and a half, and I do them in 6-session blocks, so 6 weeks, because the American school system, most public school systems in America use 6 weeks as their grading cycle. And so I figured, okay, parents are already used to that.
Sure.
And 6 sessions, 6 episodes gives me a good structure for, all right, these kids are only signed up for these first 6. I can finish a story in 6. If they want to continue, fantastic. We're doing a new arc, that sort of thing.
Gotcha.
So I'd have, most of the time it's each group meets once a week. So I see them every week. And I think on my metrics, the last platform I used, I have taught 140, something like that, kids.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, and I have a couple core groups that have been with me for 2 to 3 years now. And the double-edged sword of that is that the idea that one day I may not get to play with them anymore, which is terrifying.
I think the hope is, like, as someone who does like a little bit of gaming and teaching with kids still, I feel like the hope is that you set them up to keep playing with each other after they have moved. I'm also, there are 2 things that to me I'm really curious about, again, in the contrast of how I might be doing things. One is if these are all still virtual or any of them are in person. And 2 is like, man, fitting a session into 90 minutes is a fucking feat. That is really impressive.
I think that was actually part of what gave me a little bit of shine towards Unbalanced Encounters, was that they knew I was already in a position where I am having to cut and structure my stories because I have my own self-imposed limits on the games. To answer your first question, they are all virtual. I've given thought to setting up in the local library and being open to a session there. Being virtual, the lovely part of it is that a lot of the students I get, a lot of the kids I get that wanted to learn how to do this were not able to go to school for different reasons, health reasons, mental health reasons. They were isolated. They were looking for things to do online. And to see some of them develop over the years. And how, I mean, starting with a kid who is almost nonverbal and being very shy and only, using chat on the meeting, or sometimes just not saying anything at all, just kind of cueing me as to what they want to do, to then giving the rallying cry speech to an army on a beach as an invasion comes, and they full on in character gave the speech that lasted like 3 minutes, and the rest of us just sat there stunned. Like, getting to see that makes everything worth it all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. That is, I mean, I think as educators, like, something like that is when you know you made a difference, right? I think sometimes it's easy for us to feel it's all intangible. Again, like, I used to be like, oh, I can see you do a backflip now, kid, that I taught to do a backflip, and you weren't able to 6 weeks ago. But a lot of times it's so intangible. But this is a concrete, kid, you would not have done that a couple years ago, Yeah, that's so cool. Have any of those core groups, the 2 or 3 year groups, wanted to switch to like, no, we want a campaign. We don't want a new 6 week thing anymore. Again, because I ran into that exact thing. Like, my last group was like, hey, can we start a campaign? I'm like, you're all in it for the long haul, and they go, yeah. Like, all right, here we go.
Yeah. Absolutely. All of my long-term groups have done multiple campaigns. The 6 weeks was also part of that. Was me probably underselling myself a bit, but I would see the total amount that would cost parents, and I'd be like, man, I don't want to make it any more than this chunk at a time, But I have had some groups that say like, okay, we're going to make characters. We want to stick with these for a good while. And some of those we went for like a year, and we got to a certain point of, hey, there's going to be a huge whole new epic arc where your characters are pretty high level. Do you guys want to put these on the shelf for a bit and go try Monster of the Week? Things like that. And I've done that with just about every core group. Recently, one of them, we set aside Monster of the Week. It said, this is a good stopping point for the season, quote unquote. Let's go start a D&D campaign with level 0 characters and see what we can do. So there's been, that's, so the other thing that could sometimes hit you when you do this is just how many long, impactful stories you sit in and characters you interact with. And I'll wake up sometimes and be like, guys, was I just dreaming about that campaign? We need to get back to that because I got to know the ending.
Yeah. And I think also what is notable to me is that in spite of many years of like doing these short games, continuing to tell stories with kids, you're still doing it and you still sound really excited and happy about it. And it hasn't gotten to this like, God damn it, now this is work.
It's funny, just the way I'm built. Sometimes before a class is about to start, I get that feeling of like, oh, I wonder if someone's going to cancel or something, even knowing that, hey, I need people to meet so that I can get paid eventually. But every time I'm in it, though, every single time I'm in it and get to hear the ideas from kids, it's so soul enriching. And teaching, being a public school teacher in Texas, it's a little tough because you're in a place that doesn't want your job to exist. And that can be grinding and dealing with the millions of other things in that job that are not teaching. Yeah. With this, I'm getting to just, at most, be a facilitator, and then sometimes I get to just sit back and watch. And it's different every time, and getting to meet different kids who bring different things to the table, and then getting to stick with some kids for years on end, and not just watch how they develop in the games, but watch their friendships develop with each other. I've got several core groups where 1 or 2 might be family members, but the other ones involved, they only met online, and now they're together, they're chatting each week. They have interest outside of TTRPGs together. And
that's so cool.
It's so cool to see, especially seeing this generation and how well they support each other is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as a longtime educator and longtime gamer, like, I think we're talking about this already, but like, can we name specifically the ways that you have found learning to play and playing together, playing RPGs together is impactful on kids' learning?
Oh yeah, this is great practice for my my pitch for my business.
Yeah, so. yeah. Like, let's give me the elevator pitch.
The first and foremost, I believe most people would see things as like, oh, this is great for reading skills. This is great for public speaking skills. Yeah, fantastic. We'll get to those. But my number one is empathy, because the kids get practice at using these characters. And when things happen to the characters, they have to think about how the character feels. And if they're thinking about how the character feels, they're thinking about how they feel. And when their character's interacting with other characters and their character makes another character feel a certain way, that connecting thought of, oh, I did that. I made my character do this, and it had this impact. And the empathy development in just... I'm sure this would come from, possibly from acting classes or other things, but something about tabletop role-playing games is so unique in its own that you can step into and step back from the character and engage as much as you want. And you have this built-in fiction that you can use as a litmus test for what you're feeling, to test how other people are feeling. And I've had many kids who... you can see parts of their personalities that are either repressed or had not had a chance to flourish yet. And they put it into a character, and they look and they wait to see how people react to that character. And I will tell you, everyone listening, and I really hope some of the parents of my kids are listening, I will tell you without fail, 100% of the time, these kids accept every single character, flaws and all, never, ever reject them. Yeah. And it's so beautiful to watch.
Yeah. Great pitch. 100%. Well, and like, so for me, like I say a lot that I wish that empathy was a thing that school systems actually taught rather than sort of memorization of facts. Like, it's critical thinking, communication, and empathy. And so hilariously, those are three things that I feel like RPGs really deliver.
They really do.
In terms of kids' like brain growth and development,
Well, let me ask you, as someone who's played TTRPGs as an adult, have you noticed a benefit for yourself playing these games, or anything that's grown in you?
Absolutely. Again, apart from like for me, it's professional development. It is, I started playing a lot more in 2020, and I started doing a lot of stupid voices and trying to really force myself to stick with accents or voices for characters and NPCs. So professional development at a bare minimum. I feel like it has helped me sort of figure out creative problem solving, because you're going to have this weird situation that does not necessarily apply to your life, but you still got to figure out how to get past this obstacle, whether it is a monster, a locked door, a weird puzzle, or other players and having to talk to them to get their characters to agree. I think it has... honestly, I do think I have noticed more empathy for people that I have played with have brought really, really fucking weird characters. With very, very odd quirks. And I think it normalizes talking about a lot of these things, and it definitely normalizes just having a person like that around you a lot, even if it's in your imagination, I think those are the things I'm gonna pick for myself. If I had started playing a lot younger, I think I might have noticed a lot. I hilariously played 2 sessions of maybe 3.5 or AD&D at a summer camp when I was about 10, and then it got lost. And I distinctly remember going up to our DM, my counselor, like the end of the session, it was a 4-week summer camp. I go up to him and I'm like, "We didn't finish our D&D game. What happened?" And he looks at me and he goes, You see a red dragon in front of you. It's an open mouth. It's about to breathe fire. What do you do? And I go, can I attack it? And he goes, you killed it. You win 7,000 million XP and a lot of gold. And he like kind of walked away from me. And then I like didn't play again for years. But like, I think if I had played a lot earlier, I think, you know, adult me has a language to say, oh, I think I would notice empathy and communication skills that I wished I'd had in my teens forming at a much earlier age. So, you know, parents, if you're listening, send your kids to Delightful Dungeon Diving if you want them to grow up with critical thinking, communication skills, and empathy.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And, you know, I learn, I've said how much I've learned being a lorekeeper, and I have also learned so much from the kids. And it's not simply a thing of, I've completely learned everything there is to know about non-binary or trans people because of the kids I teach. Not that. It's more reigniting interest constantly because the kids are interested in things, because the kids are curious about things, and little things that I wouldn't have thought were impactful before. I mean, my favorite stories of all time, and I I know the parent will probably be listening, and has already heard this story because it's on my TikTok, but I'm going to tell it again anyways.
Yeah, lay it on me.
Early on, I think this was about 3 years ago, get this group of kids. Only two of the six knew each other in real life, and they're on there. We're doing introductions, and it's on Zoom, and so you can see the little name handles up there. And as we're going, I'm doing introductions, and I see up in the corner, one kid puts in parentheses, they, them. And it was the first time I had actually seen that in a professional setting or just outside of social media. And I thought, and for context, I did run an LGBTQ alliance club at a school I taught at. But I saw it and I thought, oh my gosh, how have I never thought to put pronouns on these things before? And as I'm in the chat typing out private messages to each other kid, they're like, hey, if you wouldn't mind putting these up there, they're doing it themselves. The oldest kid in the group sees that, puts up their own pronouns, and they were all doing it just automatically. And
That's
to
so
me,
cool.
It made me think, okay, I need to be aware that there's an entire generation of people that instinctively do these things, these empathetic things, and I need to try as hard as possible to absorb that into my own life and make it a gut instinct at all times. And that kid felt comfortable, and they've been playing with me ever since. And I can't imagine a day that I don't get to experience their characters too. It's really terrifying to me.
No, totally. I like, for all that I've had a regular group the entire last school year, and a couple of them the school year before that. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna be real sad when they leave and hopefully grow up and tell their own stories and do their own games somewhere else. But like, yeah, their characters live rent-free in my head for sure. You know? Yeah. I love that story. Like that you know, some of the kids are all right. Many of them are all right. I'm sorry, young listeners, that my generation and my parents' generation is leaving you such a fucking terrible world.
Yes.
We're trying, and we have a lot of faith in you.
We're trying.
Yeah.
Constantly talking to other adults these days. I'm not in that stance of like, well, the kids will clean it all up. But I say, hey, you have no idea, like the stories I get to experience and the kinds of stories that their characters push forward, the kinds of arcs their characters push forward. I had one group, they wanted so desperately to play in the gray area and play kind of evil characters. And that entire story, without real push from me, that entire story became, I have done irredeemable things. Can I still put good into the world? They couldn't help themselves. They had to veer towards doing positive within the story of the world. And I mean, there'll be times, because I'm such a romantic, that I'm out running and I'll think of the ending of that story and it'll just get me real emotional.
I mean, I don't know the ending, and I feel like and for the kids to experience that both conceptually and kind of viscerally as their own characters are going from irredeemable, unrepentant evil to like actually wait. I can maybe do bad things, but there can be a really good purpose behind it, and I can make this something like that is a morally complex, challenging story to tell and to be playing. You know.
Yeah, especially for like a 14-year-old.
Yeah. Where you're just your blood is a cocktail of hormones and like weird soup, and you have no rear like frontal cortex yet, and like all the God, I can only imagine. Amazing.
I think having a generation where TTRPGs are so much more mainstream and accepted, it doesn't matter that it's mainstream. It doesn't make it boring because the nature of TTRPGs is different every single time you play it. And I think having so many kids that have grown up in that space, I mean, off the charts in terms of being primed for critical thinking.
Yeah, I mean, you know, explains why there seems to be like yet another fake satanic panic about D&D and why people don't seem to want their kids critically thinking. I don't get it.
If there's a satanic panic, someone's doing something right.
So that honestly, yes. Well, Nick, I think on that note, the extremely important questions that I have to ask, because all of these were just warm up, the prelude to the important question. Nick, what is your favorite character class and subclass within D&D?
Mine, especially based on...
Or multiple. Multiples are always okay. Third-party content is always okay as long as you tell me why.
I had some conversations with some Unbalanced Encounters folks recently, and it made me realize how much I like druids. And I think for me, it's druid, and it'd be Circle of the Moon druid, because for me, the shape-shifting into animal form is so cool. Just on a mechanical level, I love that. I also realized in both Unbalanced Encounters, I was in the Hateful Fate and Small God Scatter arcs, and those characters I played there, as well as characters I've played in recent playtests and in home games, I realized there's a level of bitterness at power in some of my characters. And coming all the way back to like what a Lorekeeper does, having some introspection and realizing that I am a straight white American dude who grew up in what can best be described as a mining colony in a foreign land that itself was being exploited and brutalized by its imperial government, as well as being exploited by a foreign nation building a mine there.
Sure.
And grappling with my feelings on having grown up there, I really love the idea of these characters who you're given all of the power in the world, whether you want it or not. It wasn't your choice, but you still have it. And does that make you responsible for it? Does it give you a duty to use it properly? And with that comes an amount of bitterness towards it. Why was I given this? Why do I have to face this? But also, I'm in a better position than anybody else. And that's a conflict that I think is so much fun to explore, especially in druids, where your magic is coming from a natural force or a force that you can't fully comprehend.
Yeah.
And
it's not a deity that has a name and the ability to contact it is sort of like the unknowable mysteries of nature. Yeah. I mean, you know, the clown in me goes like, cool, play against type, create the person that seized power, revels in it, and is never giving it up just to see what happens, you know? But yeah, you know, I think that's, one, I think it's really interesting to like kind of notice that for yourself about characters that you tend to play. And like, I don't know, again, what a cool thing about RPGs to sort of function as... it's like not self-therapizing, but like self-reflection and some amount of like processing, perhaps. But like, yeah,
it's the thing we say in TTRPGs is that, you know, role-playing games are not therapy, but they can be a tool in therapy. And I would never, I mean, I've had conversations with folks outside the TTRPG sphere about where we grew up and stuff, but I don't think I would have made that full realization without having gotten to play a character that way in a similar situation.
Yeah.
And I can never say how much I am grateful for tabletop games. The people I've met, encouraging. I never would have thought about voice acting or anything. I was terrified of public speaking when I was in school. And now I'm going to be doing my third audiobook with a third different author. And I'm going out for voice acting things and getting to do all these stuff. So I'm so grateful to everyone I've met in this sphere.
Yeah. I could not agree more. You are absolutely one of those people for me that I am so excited that I've gotten to meet. And now I'm like, oh, I get to actually kind of like work with you and now be like, oh my God, I know so much more about you and I've already liked you and I like you so much more.
Well, that's great that we have that beginning to start off with.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Like, what a treat. Yeah. That's all I got. It is such a treat.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for being part of Unbalanced Encounter so I get to work with you and learn from you as well. Like, it's always this selfish instinct in me of, yes, another person to give me their brains.
Oh, same. My brain is pretty freely on loan whenever I have the minutes to spare for it.
I mean, the people we get to work with, right? Like the incredible, wonderful folks that we have in our circles that we probably don't deserve, but we got them anyways.
Absolutely, 100%. Nick, where can people find you on the online if they want to? Where can they send their kids to learn from you?
So delightfuldungeondiving.com is my website for my TTRPG for kids business. And then beardyp.com. Everyone in this sphere knows me as Beardy. It's an old footy nickname, but beardyp.com is my professional website for narration, voice acting gigs, actual plays. You know, if you want me in your project, hit me up. So beardyp.com or delightfuldungeondiving.com. Most social media, you can find Delightful Dungeon Diving. My TikTok has all these stories I've been talking about. There's a lot of stories of my kids' classes.
There's so many more.
Voices, that sort of stuff. But I urge people to go watch the stories about the kids because it'll swell your heart.
They are some of the most creative players, and they leave us such incredible stories all the time. And of course, you can find and follow The Roll Report on many socials. We are at The Roll Report Cast. If you're not already following us, you should be. If you love what we're doing, and we hope you do, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/The Roll Report for as little as $1 a month. And if you haven't already, you could go ahead and leave us a 5-star review or rating on whatever podcast service you are listening to us on. And by the way, thank you for that. We appreciate it. Nick, once again, thank you so much for joining us. It has been such a pleasure to get to speak with you, and I can't wait for more.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Any chance I get to talk about kids and tabletop role-playing games.
Yeah, 100%. Until next time, rollers, roll down some more hills. It's fun.